Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my home country, Denmark, and of course its media landscape. I don't know if many of you know this, but Denmark is a very small country. We only have about 5.8 million people in our population, and if you don't know where it's located, it's in the northern Europe, right next to Sweden and Norway, and they are all part of something that is called Scandinavia. Now, what is interesting though is that Denmark is a country that has a mature liberal democracy. In fact, as of 2020, we had a in liberal democracy index of ranked in the top 10%, and we've been ranked number 3 in the world press freedom and ranked number 2 in the freedom of expression. But now you might think, well, what does liberal democracy and freedom of expression have to do with media? Well, it actually plays the base or the main role. So Denmark highly values freedom of speech, and being able to debate all themes, even those that are maybe controversial or uncomfortable, and they're all very important to them. So basically, ever since, you could say, or thanks to the Danish Constitutional Act of 1849, Danish citizens have basically preached and really believed in this freedom to publish their thoughts in print and mark the end of censorship. And even if they can be held responsible for their printing in court of law, it's very important to them to be able to express themselves and have the right to, no matter what. And examples of these are, as you can see here, many had the courage even to and the allowance to offend the people of Islam, like when Kurt Westergaard drew the famous drawings and cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. He now lives underground, protected by the police, and he had the right to publish these cartoons, but even though the police didn't agree with it, they still are protecting him under the law, the Danish constitution. So then we have another example here of the Danish politician Rasmus Paludan, who basically posted himself and other people viral videos of him burning the Quran, while he was actually also, as you can see in the picture, wearing a bulletproof vest, which was given by the police, and he was also surrounded by the police, as you can see in the background, but there were like many people around him who were from the police force surrounding him to protect him, knowing that he would tell them, listen, I'm going to offend a lot of people, I need protection. And that's what the Danish police force is legally required to do, even though they don't agree. So regarding the media service, we have two main media services that provide news and entertainment. So it's not only about this role of freedom of expression, but it's also the role of entertaining people and showing news. We have the traditional and the digital media services in Denmark. The traditional are divided into two. We have this dual media system. So we have the public service with radio and broadcasters, which are only two, DR and TV2, as you can see in the top. And they're used by at least 50% of the population. And then we have the privately owned services with national written newspapers such as Politiken, Berlingske, Jyllandsposten, Information, Kristeligt Dagblad, Børsen, Ekstrabladet, and BT. These are all used by under 16% of the population. And you can see them listed here under the main ones. But for the digital services, we have online websites as seen on the right, which surprisingly to me, Ekstrabladet, which is like this website with always fake news and gossip, and is the third most used at 26%. You can see it's the third one at the dark red line. But if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because, it's the younger audience that uses the online media to get information and news. So they are more drawn to those kind of news than, as you can see, the online websites from the newspapers that the elderly people use. Then going into the more digital media, we have the streaming services and the social media. So for streaming services, the most used ones are YouTube at 52%, Netflix at 48%, DR at 42%, and TV2 at only 20%. We have TV2 Play, which is on demand. And then the third digital media used is, of course, social media. We have Facebook at 79, Facebook messages at 72%, and Instagram at 59%. And it's interesting because in Denmark, the reason why Facebook and messages are at the top is because we we don't use WhatsApp, and maybe like a big percentage of the population has Facebook. So it's very normal that a lot of them of us use Facebook, and that we then use Facebook messages to communicate with other people. Now, looking into the Scandinavian countries, it's they're actually all known for having public support for broadcasters and newspapers, for having strong professional associations for journalists, and for having a significant share of foundation-owned newspapers. So Denmark actually has 59% of its adults who trust the news media overall, and 66% actually trust the news that they use themselves. You can see on the left there written. And as you can see on the right, both public broadcasters, which are DR and TV2, are the most used ones and are also the most trusted media for news, trusted by over 80% of the population, as you can see there, 82 and 84%. So there has been a huge change in the media in Denmark especially, but generally in the world due to development of technology and social pandemic and distancing due to COVID. And there has been a huge increase, as you can see here, in social media due to this over the last decade. And prints obviously have then gone down after the pandemic, especially. And both services organizations, both DR and TV2, have gained a lot of users online. But more interesting is that you can see on the right the change from computers being the most used device for news to now being smartphones. So that has been a huge change, especially in technology. And then another significant change, as you can see in the bottom written, is that there has been the media agreement for 2019 to 2023 that has changed the license fee with direct taxation. So this is kind of bad for the two public media service, but it's very good, and it's used to help the private media players as they're given more money from the states to support them and hopefully get into the more media fluctuation. So the Danish media policy is based on political consensus. So there's a lot of focus on diversity and journalistic independence. The public service media relationship with those in power is what we called arm's length principle. So this means that neither politicians nor the Ministry of Culture are allowed to be involved in a allocation of subsidies, and therefore they can't really act biased or have an influence within the media. So it's very unbiased, is what they're stating here, thanks to this principle. And looking into the impact on society, Denmark's social inclusiveness actually has a low of a score as 22%, which is at low risk then. But the two areas in the society that make this increase are the access for media for minorities at 50% and access to media for women at 44%, which is a medium risk because Denmark doesn't really have strict policies assuring the access for minorities and women to media, and instead they have this focus more on pluralism and diversity. So if they had to improve, that would be in those two sectors because they are most influenced by this faulty in the system, you could say. And then, well, the media have had really big impact on the economic situation in Denmark. So you could see here that it has increased its digital market value to $0.6 billion, and all its media has given a revenue of $5.9 billion. But what's really interesting here is actually that Denmark has supported key companies in the digital media marketing, being Apple, Alphabet, Spotify, and Netflix, with over like 74 million euros. So that is a lot of investment. So the main takeaways from this presentation is basically that Denmark's media landscape is characterized by, you could say, four things. a very active newspaper industry with high circulation that causes early mass press, and on presidential political pluralism based on external pluralism of the national press, a strong professionalization of journalism and institutional self-regulation, and then also a strong state of intervention with subsidies, but with the always, no matter what the opinion is, with the protection for freedom of press. Thank you so much for listening.